Hey, my name's Neill Furmston, aka Furmy, and I'm a creative director, photographer, and wannabe pop artist. And you're listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I'm humbled to have Neill here with me, who is a global creative director. Neill, thank you so much for coming on the Us People podcast. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
No, I'm definitely humbled to have you. I have a lot of gratitude to have you here. My first question for you, Neill, and I really do love to ask this question to everybody because it lets me know an insight about who you are as a person. But could you tell me who you believe you are as a person, but also where have you been brought up and how did that influence you to be the person who you are today?
Yeah, well, you wouldn't tell so by my accent, but I was born in Newcastle in the north of England.
Wow.
Maybe by the fact that I say Newcastle, not Newcastle,
Yeah.
is a bit of a giveaway. Um, but yeah, I mean, even though I spent most of my life in the south, I'd still say I'm proud to be a northerner, and I hold some of those values kind of close to my heart, I think, and that's probably helped kind of shape the person that I am today.
Perfect. Oh, wow. So, how old were you when you first believed that you were creative and this is an angle or direction that you wanted to get into?
Or probably about 4 or 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where, of course, every kid is into art at that age, but I was really into it. It was an absolute obsession. And then when I became a teenager, I think my dad's got an old videotape of me somewhere saying, one day I want to be a creative director. I'll have to dig that out at some point, but it's
Yeah.
there. It's there for for the fact that the hunger was always there. I think from very early on.
How was your family towards you? Did they support the fact that you were a creative director? Because I know how families can be when you say anything to do with creativity. How was it
Yeah,
for
it
you?
was. Yeah, they were pretty supportive. I think there was one point before I went away to uni where there was a vague possibility of me becoming a stockbroker or a banker or something like that. But I
Oh.
said no. Art college is the way to go for me. They probably thought I just wanted to lounge about and do nothing. But no, that was the passion. Maybe a little bit of that. I don't know. Yeah.
Um, what was your inspiration when it comes to work and starting in the industry of the direction of you being a creative director?
Yeah, I think again going back to me being a teenager, it was just music and album covers and
Mhm.
posters and everything about that. I think that was my first introduction into the world of graphic design and how that could be used to kind of convey an emotion that was connected to a particular song. And I was so inspired by very early artists. I'm showing my age now in the 80s.
No, you're
Bit
not.
of an 80s kid. So yeah, some of the graphics obviously in the 80s were absolutely amazing to the point where they've come round again. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely kind of music graphics was the starting point, and then understanding how I could possibly kind of get involved with that side of things and make a career out of that.
It sounds really good to me. How do you turn your ideas into projects? Because that's something really important as well when it comes to creativity.
Yeah, I suppose this is the difference between commercial art and just general art and creativity. So on a professional level, for all ideas to become a reality, they can't simply be random. They have to come from
Yeah.
a brief. So a seed might already be planted in your head, but that's based on a simple kind of insight or a customer want, etc. And understanding how that's going to resonate with people and be turned into a big idea. So a lot of the time, it is very much about insight. And the best example I would ever give is, think of the Snickers adverts.
Ah,
There's that insight around hunger and how hunger can mean lack of concentration, you're grouchy, and ultimately you're not performing at the level you're supposed to. But the bigger, we all know the campaign, they're well famous, and I think they're all over the world, not just in the UK. And the big idea there is you're not you when you're hungry, i.e. that Snickers comes to the rescue to snap you out of it, and you can start performing again like the real you. And the icing on the cake for a campaign like that is it takes that great idea, and then they cast actors who were well known as being divas, so it amplifies that even further. And that's the beauty of a good idea, where you take that core idea, which is already a good idea, and you build upon it and upon it and upon it, and you understand how that can become a really truly great idea. It's a bit like Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl would write and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, and he would, until he was totally and utterly happy with it. And in a commercial world, sometimes you don't have the luxury of time, but when you do, make sure you use that time to your best advantage, I think.
that's true. That's actually a really good example. As soon as you said the Snickers advert, I just thought of the Elton John one.
Yes, total DVC.
The-
Yeah,
yeah, there you go.
mhm,
And him having the Snickers bar and him all being okay after
yeah.
that. For people to understand you, Neil, a bit better, could you describe what a day in your life is like
Ooh,
as a creative director? I know it's a bit hard because you're going from the morning from when you wake up to the evening. And I know it can be a, a lot of creative directors who I've spoken to in the past said sometimes it's a really late night or a really early
yeah,
morning.
yeah.
How is it for you, Neil, when you're starting in the morning? What is your routine like for you?
Um, I like to get up relatively early and have everything kind of planned out before the day starts, really, just to make sure that whatever comes my way, I'm going to be in a good frame of mind to be able to tackle that. Because there's nothing worse than being a disorganized creative, and there are plenty of them out there. I try not to be one of those. I try to make sure that that I'm able to give the attention to the job in hand. Every single day is completely different in terms of that job, especially within my role, because I'm not just dealing with one type of creativity or one type of design. It's it might be a piece of print or a piece of digital or film work. It really does vary. So it's just, I suppose the most important thing is making sure you are switched on and you're ready to kind of tackle any questions, because a lot of the time my job is about justifying your vision in the first place, and making sure that
Yeah,
if someone does question something, you've got the right answers. um, i'm not a I'm not a coffee drinker, so I don't know whether that works to my advantage or not. So it's not like I wake up
same
and
as me.
rely on coffee.
Yeah, it's definitely the same as me. Coffee makes me extremely high, so that's not a good option for me myself. Talk to me about branding and the objectives and doing a project for customers. How does it all work?
um, Well, it that really depends on the task in hand. So there's an old saying, garbage in, garbage out, and the idea is that if the brief isn't good enough, then neither will the work be. Uh,
Fair enough.
and bearing in mind, I've come from agencies where I'm working with multiple clients. Obviously, now I'm working in house, so it's slightly different. But you've got to tread carefully, because quite often a client will give you nothing and expect everything in return. So I think
That's
first and foremost, you've got to start off and you've got to be quite firm with that. So the idea is that every product has an entirely different set of objectives. So it's important to, again, going back to that Snickers analogy earlier, making sure that we've got the right customer insight, or a particular customer need will often steer that creative idea and turn it into something great. So it's regardless of what the medium is as well. I think I'm very passionate about challenging a brief. So someone's asked me for a video, and I don't believe that the video is the right kind of format to do the job within that brief, then I will kind of challenge that and suggest what those alternatives could be. And also, if a brief isn't tight enough, then we really need to kind of make sure we steer that in terms of making it tight enough so that the final execution is a true representation of that brief. And there's this great quote, again, I'm a big fan of quotes, kind of inspire me along the way. And it's David Ogilvy, who's, I suppose you could say, was one of the original madmen. And he said, give me the freedom of a tight brief. And I'm a total and utter believer in that.
See, that's a really good saying, actually.
Yeah, it is.
That is a really.
It is. It's one of those things where, you know, the best projects I've ever worked on is where I've got such a solid brief. I was very fortunate to work on a campaign for Purcell a few years ago, and Dirt is Good already existed. It already had done for years and years and years, and that was already steering you in such a strong kind of way to mean that your work was already going to be in a good place by the time you tackled it. So it's all the hard work's been done.
Has there been anyone in your life, Neill, who supported you from when you were beginning to who you are and where you are now? I know sometimes in life there's different people because we go on different journeys, but is there any particular person who you could say has supported you throughout your life so you could be the person who you are today?
Yeah, I think art teachers kind of seeing the talent in me and knowing that I've never been a fine artist. I've always worked in a very, very graphical way. That's down to probably me growing up in the 80s and being obsessed by certain bands and their album covers. And you know, I had an art teacher who was, you know, adamant that that was what I was going to go into. She knew I had such a passion for it, and everything I did was in a particular style already. But outside of that, I think because I've from a very, very young age, I've always been at kind of creative director level through bit of a kind of happy accident, I guess, more than anything else. The I'd say that in a non-creative capacity, perhaps my mum and my wife have been my strongest advocates and have been very kind of um, very respectful of my passion behind my work and enable me to do that rather than, you know, held me back in any way. And I'm totally and utterly grateful for those two women in my life.
See, you have two strong
I
women
do. They're
behind you.
very, very, very strong women. Um, you know, and I'm very, you know, I've got two daughters myself, so I'm obviously a
Oh,
big
wow.
advocate for strong female role models. And I think if I didn't have those people in my life, I don't think I would be the person I am today, or to be so respectful of others. I think you need that. I think you need the yin to the yang in terms of kind of balancing you out as a person and making you realize that even if you have got a fancy title like creative director, it doesn't mean you can go about kind of acting fancy.
You know, you're one of the first people to actually say that to me.
Okay.
Um, one of the questions I always ask people, and I don't mind asking you it right now, actually, is I don't believe that we are defined by our titles, but how would you define you as a person rather than your title? How would you define who you are, Neill, as a person?
Oh, that's a really tricky one. Um,
Mm.
I try not to be too inwardly reflective, so it's hard to know how to answer that one. I suppose um, I'm in constant perpetual motion, always looking to kind of better myself. You know, again, you know, going back to old sayings of you're only as good as your last project. I'm always very, very conscious of the fact that I can't just rest on my laurels, and I am. I don't get arrogant about my work. I get very humble about the situations I've been in, and I know the best work I've ever done is through strong collaborations with the right people, the, you know, other equally kind of talented, if not more talented people. So it's, yeah, I think, you know, again, you know, it's a bit embarrassing to kind of define yourself by certain words, but I think I'm very grounded. which I suppose makes me kind of humble in terms of my role and what that role affords me.
That's true. I like that. That was really nice. Are there anybody or is there anybody that you feel that you admire because of their work within campaigning or designing or just being an artist? Is there anybody that you admire?
Yeah, so many people in different capacities as well. So from a professional level that's kind of close to the areas that I'm working in, there are so many people I went to university with, and they're in a variety of different roles now, all relatively senior roles. Two of them are a creative director team at the
Mhm.
I'd say the continually the best ad agency in the world. You'll be familiar with the work they've done for John Lewis. They've
Ah,
created
yes.
a few campaigns for John Lewis. Another great kind of university colleague was now an executive creative director, another fantastic kind of brand agency, and he's recently worked on the idents for the BBC Two, a lovely kind of idents, all
Wow.
done in lots and lots of different mediums. So he's a big part of that. So yeah, lots of people I grew up with really, and a few of those people I'm very close to today. I was best man for one of the guys, and another guy was best man at my wedding. So we, even kind of 25 plus years on, we're still quite a close knit bunch of people. So we're continually kind of pushing each other and admiring each other's work. Hopefully, in terms of what we're doing, because we're a bunch of old guys still trying to make it in the industry and still at the top of our game, hopefully. So yeah.
I say you're as old as you feel.
Oh, good. That's
So if you,
24 then.
that's
Yeah.
fine. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. There was something that you said just earlier on, and it was about album
Mm,
covers and your teacher saying that's the kind of direction that they thought possibly that you might go
yeah.
into. And then a question popped in my head, and I thought, let me ask you, what is the best album cover you have ever seen, Neil?
Ooh. Well, um, I'd probably argue something like Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd,
Okay. Yeah,
which is just that prism, with the rainbow kind of going through it, and it's such a simple design, and the story behind it was um, the band had gone to Storm Thorgerson's studio, and he had a bunch of ideas, a bunch of crazy ideas about what he wanted to do for this amazing rock band, and they were just adamant they wanted the first idea he kind of showed them. They were fixated on this, and it was literally an old kind of cutting out of a science book. That's all it was, nothing grander than that. But it summed up the whole, that the whole style of music they were into, and the name of the album as well, Dark Side of the Moon. And I think for me, and this isn't just of album covers, for anything, the best ideas are always the simplest ideas that
that's
that
true.
transcend cultures and really kind of resonate with the largest audience, to the point where you quite happily wear it on a t-shirt, put it up on your wall, have it as a tattoo. It can be applied to absolutely everything and anything. And I think it's one of the biggest accolades. If someone wants to transform your own work into a tattoo and have that on their body for the rest of their lives, that's a pretty powerful statement, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I totally agree with you there.
Mm.
Here's one for you. What is the funniest brief you have ever been given on a project? And how did it make you feel to be working on that project? And how did it come out?
Yeah, there's probably too many to mention, or maybe I can't mention them because some of them are really embarrassing, and I can't retell them. You know, but I suppose one that kind of sticks in my mind in recent years was I was involved in a shoot with both children and animals. They say never work with children or animals. Well, I worked with both of them on this shoot, and and thankfully the kids were well behaved. So was the dog, But cats are an entirely different story. You know,
Oh, I was gonna
yeah,
say that.
you've heard the phrase like it's like herding cats. Well, we were literally herding cats on this shoot, and we were informed by the cat trainer that the cat was well trained. But all that simply means is following a piece of ham on a stick for as long as you want to. You know, that they'll literally just follow it and then bite it and then they'll be off, and then you've got to put another piece of ham on a stick and carry on all over again. Well, that's great, but what happens when the stick's constantly in front of the camera while you're trying to shoot away? You know, we were shooting some idents, I think it was at the time, for a TV show, and the final piece of work was supposed to be these, you know, the selection of cats at home gently climbing over a sofa, you know, before settling down to TV, like all cats do, all good trained cats do. And this involved the owner just kind of tossing the cats over the sofa one by one, literally looked like throwing them out. I think the owner herself had got so fed up with the cats, she was literally just kind of throwing them over the sofa. Should have been some health and safety person there for the cats at that point. And then we had to spend hours kind of compositing out her, you know, her vibrant kind of hands all over the place, kind of throwing these cats over. It worked it out in the end, but it was a bit of a nice nightmare in post production to sort it out. But yeah, it was quite funny to watch and try not to laugh.
I would have loved to have been there. I don't think I would have been able to contain myself, but I would have definitely
Yeah,
tried. Yeah. What is your mindset like when you're writing a pitch to a client?
yeah. Well, there's this. I've got this brilliant diagram on my Pinterest board somewhere, and it's the creative pit of despair. And the idea is that you start off the process in a really positive mindset, and you
Right.
think you've got a great idea. Your first idea is always brilliant, you know, it's wonderful, and then all of a sudden you're at the top of that pit, and very very rapidly you reassess that idea and you go right down to the bottom of the pit, and you figure out that this is the worst idea ever. This is not going to work. How are we going to get out of this? Oh, this is an absolute disaster. We might as well give up now. And slowly but surely, you build upon that idea. You strengthen it again. Go back to that idea of writing and rewriting and reworking, and you slowly but surely crawl your way out of that pit until you get to the other side, and you look back and you go, "This is great. We've got this," because you've done all that hard work to get yourself out of that pit. So I think you've always got to start with the best intentions. You've always got to start with a solid kind of structure and framework, and you've always got to understand that at some point you're going to feel like you're not in a good place, but you know that eventually you'll be at the other side. So I think only experience kind of gives you that. Mainly because when I was so young, working on pitches, I'd be working till like 2 or 3 in the morning. I
Yeah.
don't do that anymore because I feel, again, this isn't me being cocky or arrogant. This is just me knowing how to go through the process in the right way. And I don't want my fellow younger kind of creative team necessarily going through that process of all the hard work. So, you know, I hopefully will give them a little bit of wisdom in terms of that pit of despair and knowing they'll get out of it at some point.
That's actually really good
Yeah.
advice. I love that though. I was reading up about you and there was something that came up and I thought I would ask
Yeah.
you because I thought this would be really helpful to people. And it's something really simple. I was reading in one of your bulletin points and it says that you are consistent and unaffected by pressure.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about this. What do you mean by this? Because there are so many people that get stressed out at
Mhm.
work and stressed out with the project. And but how does this work for you where you don't get affected by clients or people around you or deadlines?
Yeah, I think I boil it down to two different things that have happened in my life. I'll talk about the less serious one first, and that's working in the film industry. I worked in the film industry for quite some time,
Yeah.
marketing for kind of movie campaigns, and I got to work with lots of, you know, relatively well-known actors, some of them, Hollywood stars, and you just got to treat them like normal people. You haven't got to get starstruck, and you haven't got to get in a flap about it, because no one's going to get the job done. So it's understanding to be kind of level-headed and treating everybody how you want to be treated. And I think a lot of kind of stars, they are, when you've got someone like that that's treating them like a normal person, they treat you the same way, and you tend to get on quite
Yeah.
well. And then the second one is, just before my 30th birthday, I had food poisoning. I didn't think
Oh,
anything of, well, I say I didn't think anything of it. It was food poisoning that lasted about 2 weeks, and I lost several
oh,
stone. I'm not particularly kind of big man myself, so I didn't look particularly well. Got over that, and then 6 months later, I've been to a party, dancing all night, had a great time, and the next day, I thought, oh, I think I've overdone it on the dance floor last night. Um, I'm in absolute agony. I couldn't feel my legs, and this is getting, I'm laughing away here because I can do, but slowly but surely, I lost the power in my legs to the point where I couldn't walk. I'd lost all the muscles, had wasted away in my arms and legs, and it turned out,
my God.
yeah, it was quite serious at the time. It's something called Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is quite rare. I think it only affects like 1 in 100,000 people, and it was the food poisoning which was dormant in my system, and then what it did is the bacteria attacked my nervous system and caused it to shut down. And
Oh,
so this
wow.
lasted for about 6 months, and I just started a new job as creative director at this point. I was like, oh, desperate to kind of get into work, and trying to figure out ways to get into work, to, shuffle up and down the stairs, and it was quite a struggle. But when I, fast forward to 6 months later, when I regained my strength and my ability to walk, one, I just loved walking. I'd walk. I mean, to this day, my wife and kids are sick of me because I love walking everywhere, and I do. And I did back then. I absolutely loved just walking. And also, that gave me the ability to realize, and the specialists were saying, oh, you had 1 in 10 chance of dying. You're lucky to be alive. Most people would be kind of paralyzed, or, in a very, very bad way from this. You're very, very lucky. And that made me instantly more chilled and relaxed. I'd say I still have a sense of urgency in my work, and I'm very passionate about doing a great job, but I don't get stressed out by those little kind of niggly things where you've got no control over
Yeah.
things. So, yeah, I'd say it's those two that have paved the way for me being a little bit more unaffected by the pressure.
I like that. I think would you call it an awakening of some kind
Yeah,
in a sense?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not particularly religious person, but I am a spiritual person.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I suppose a little bit of my wife's religion kind of rubs off on me. She's a Roman Catholic, but
Mm.
I mean, I just kind of I'm interested in religion in all shapes and forms. Having kind of traveled, been lucky enough to travel the world and engage with different cultures and religions, and I think so. It's a bit of an awakening. It does make you think about the bigger picture and our role within the bigger picture, and how and
Yeah.
what we want to get out of that role, and what the best way of going about that is as well. And simple kind of things like treating people the way you want to be treated, and also that idea of serenity, understanding what you've got the ability to change and what's just going to happen anyway, and knowing the difference in between is very, very important. I think people sometimes forget those simple little guiding principles in life, and it's very important to come back and revisit those, I think.
Just the simplicity of life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I understand that. How do you feel about the next generation of creatives coming in? How do you feel that they will make a difference in the creative world, knowing that I know before you were saying you're working with them, so you most probably have a really good insight of maybe possibly how the next generation will develop. and bring things to evolve in the world. How do you feel about it?
Well, I think we're in safe hands. That's for sure. Um, they're so incredibly driven and confident. I mean, if I had an ounce of what a graduate's kind of confidence is coming into the industry, then God knows where I'd be now. But it's incredible, really. And I'm very kind of proud of how far they want to kind of push things, and especially on the creativity side of things, they as I say, they're multifaceted. They can do so many different things because they're used to kind of creating these one man or one woman kind of creativity, I suppose, kind of shops within their own kind of bedrooms or whatever, where they might be,
Yeah.
making a podcast or creating their own little short film or movie or whatever, or all kinds of things. And it's incredible that they know that they've got the ability to do that. They've got the tools to do that. I suppose the one thing I would always kind of look out for is that you never kind of jump into the execution too early. Always
That's
always
true.
iron out what that idea is first, because we, especially as makers and creators and crafters of work, we're so interested in what the final result will be, but that shouldn't be to the detriment of making sure that your idea is as solid as possible first and foremost.
That's really good advice there. That's definitely really good advice. What is the best advice, Neil, that you have ever received from somebody? And how has that helped you in your life?
Ooh, I think simplify. Yeah,
Ooh.
simplify. It's all very well trying to be clever, um, but if you don't have a very, very simple thought that kind of paves way to a strong creative idea, then it's going to be all over the place. Your consumer, your audience will look at that and they won't understand it because it's trying to say too many things. And it goes back to the essence of any good creative brief is being single-minded. Some people call it single-minded proposition, or in the old days it was you know the unique selling point of a product or whatever. If you can't boil it down to a very, very simple single thought about where you want to go with it, which will then spark tons and tons of ideas, but they're all very, very focused ideas, um, that's the best. Again, it's something that so many people forget, and so many people in marketing want to be all singing or dancing. But the problem with that is,
Yeah.
it's like throwing 100 balls at a person and expecting them to catch one. They'll be so dumbfounded by the fact that 100 balls are coming towards them, they won't catch one. But if you throw a single ball to them, most of the time, providing they haven't got butter on their hands, they'll catch that ball.
See, that's an idea right there,
Yeah.
actually. For an advert right there. See? Neil's got it on point. Neil, what would you do if nobody was judging you? What would you do differently if the word judgment was taken out of the dictionary? It didn't exist. We're constantly getting judged by people every single day of our lives. But what would you do differently if there was no judgment in the world? Do you see that your life going in a different direction, or would you be more confident?
Ooh, it's tricky in a commercial capacity to understand how
Yeah,
judgment would either help or hinder you. I think for
yeah,
overall kind of creativity, lack of kind of judgment could be a good thing, but you've still got to have a good steer to kind of progress that idea and push that idea forward. If I'm speaking purely in artistic terms, because I do a bit of kind of art in my spare time or whatever, and that is based on
yeah,
zero judgment. That is totally and utterly for myself, because my career has been fixated on coming up with commercial ideas for clients, for brands, for products, which is fantastic. You do some great work, you get lovely big budgets, but at the end of the day, you are always compromising your idea based on many different kind of factors and many different opinions quite often. And the
Yeah.
beauty of art is it can be totally and utterly self-indulgent, and it is purely for yourself. So it's, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's that kind of divide between art and commercial art, and understanding where judgment actually plays a positive role in forging that
Yeah.
idea and making it stronger. So rather than looking at judgment as a negative thing, looking at it as a positive kind of energy, which kind of pushes you forward and drives you to do better and better, maybe.
I understand that. Here's one for you. I thought of this. I was writing it down as you was talking to me because it popped in my mind. And you've worked on so many projects, and I've seen the
Mhm.
list. And you've also won some fantastic awards as well. Is there anything that you would like to share about what it done for you to win an award for your work and how that inspired you to continuously be creative and to evolve?
Yeah, I think in the early stages of my career, I was a bit anti awards. I was a
Yeah.
bit skeptical about them because you've got to pay your entry fees, and generally it's the big kind of brands that win the awards because that's what becomes newsworthy. So, yeah, as I say, I was a little bit kind of, I'm not sure whether this is going to do anything for me. But then I kind of, in certain kind of parts of my career when I've been running agencies, I've been running the business as well as being creative. I saw the value in that award-winning status and what doors that opens up for you. So it's not necessarily about me on a personal level, because
Yeah.
I think realistically speaking, anyone can win an award if they put their mind to it and they want to win an award. Anyone can win some kind of award these days, I think. um, but it's understanding what gain that can give you from a commercial standpoint. So whether you're running your own agency or working with a vested interest in pushing that agency and kind of forging your career forward, absolutely. And I think, if you look at it as the business side of your career in terms of kind of pushing that career forward, recruiters love the words award hyphen winning. They absolutely love it. It's almost like, well, if a company is looking for you, they're not interested in you unless you're award winning. So you have to go through the motions, whether you're anti awards or not. You have to go through those motions of trying to be that award winner, because that's what makes our business go round, in the world of creativity, design, advertising, brand, etc. The awards do speak for themselves, really.
How do you feel about education, Daniel? Do you feel like education is enough to be able to get you where you need to be? Or do you feel like talent is enough? Because some people feel like they have talent and they can get to where they need to. And some people go to
Hmm.
school. But how do you feel about both? Do you think you need both as a combination? Or do you feel like one is enough to be able to get to where you need to be?
Possibly, but I think I'd say, from speaking from personal experience, it's good to have both, because from an education point of view, to have that grounding, to have that foundation, to make sure that when you do come into doing work on a commercial level, that you're not making those silly kind of little mistakes that you might do, with if you're just purely talented. And it's learning your craft. It's learning the difference between good and great, and knowing the difference. And without that foundation, you can be very, very talented, but whether that's going to hit the right notes in terms of having, a resonance for the audience, I'd say it's debatable, I think.
Okay, most definitely. What is one of the most empowering projects that you have ever worked on that personally made a difference in your life?
Oh, this is very much an easy one for me. And I was very fortunate to work at an agency called Liberty, in Brixton.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with them, but I'm just
Yeah.
biggest fan. It was a good few years ago now, but I absolutely love my time at Liberty. They do so many fantastic things, and everything's got a strong kind of purpose to it. And we hear purpose thrown about left, right, and centre these days, but they were behind campaigns having a strong kind of social purpose many moons ago, before everyone else kind of jumped on the bandwagon. And this was a campaign where I didn't know what I was going to be doing, kind of going into it. All I knew it was a campaign for Google. It was a campaign working with kids, and I'd worked on a number of youth kind of projects in the past. And this was doing a campaign for key stage 2 children. They're kind of, what I suppose back then, what you'd call kind of pre-mobile phone kids, but they're still kind of dabbling in the internet, making all those terrible mistakes on the internet. And God knows, parents are probably not understanding the ins and outs of the internet themselves, are not perhaps giving them the guidance. So it's really about empowering young children at a very young age to equip them with the right tools to be able to deal with the internet in the
Yes.
right way. And this was an absolute kind of eye opener for me, in terms of how you truly kind of speak to children, and how you truly empower them. And I love that word, empowerment, and giving children resilience, and all of these wonderful kind of building blocks that you give children, so they grow up to be very kind of strong um, and rounded individuals. And the idea was that we created a schools assembly platform. So it was all about a roadshow that went out to schools up and down the country to teach them of how to use the internet correctly. And we created a little bit of a green cross code for using the internet. So it was 4 simple phrases: think, protect, checked, respect. So it's about thinking before you're sharing anything online, protecting all your passwords, check if it's for real, if it's a scam, it's understanding that. And then respect, just respect people, treat people how you want to be treated. Don't troll people. So much trolling online, and the only reason kids do
Yeah.
it is because there are tons of adults out there trolling. So it's trying to kind of breed a new generation that's a lot more respectful and understanding, and of the kind of ins and outs of the internet, and how to use it wisely. So it's a fantastic campaign to work on, and it was picked up by the various kind of education ministers, and we ran a big program for Safer Internet Day, with a whole bunch of kids from South London coming to a big kind of theatre event together. And it was lovely. It was just so lovely because quite often you're just trying to kind of work on campaigns where you're shifting products and units. Where's the good? You can't, sometimes you kind of get home at night and think, oh, have I sold my soul to the devil again? And that's one of those campaigns where you realize, wow, there's a real strong kind of purpose here, and we're doing some good.
Yeah. Oh, sort of devil. I'm just thinking of. Oh, what message would you like to give anybody who is looking to go in the direction that you have and become an inspiration like you have to other people in the creative field of work? What advice would you give them, especially if they're coming out of university or they're young and they don't have support or anyone to push them like maybe we have to do what we love to do? What advice would you give them?
I think the best advice I could give is to, if you're really kind of passionate about being in the industry, is to understand what makes a good campaign or a good piece of design great. So take something that you're really passionate about, that you has resonated with you, and then start to deconstruct that. So going from the end result back to what that possible brief might be, and whether that brief was really well answered. So I really like to kind of, going back to the Snickers analogy earlier, take something that it either makes you laugh or makes you go wow, and then start to understand why does that make me feel that way? Why do
Yeah.
I kind of look at that, and why does it make me feel so passionate about kind of pursuing this industry? And then start to deconstruct that and make notes around that. And that might kind of give you a few extra little hidden tools or gems to apply to your own work. And also from a inspiration point of view, realize that inspiration isn't just in the end result of a creative campaign. It's absolutely anywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. So it's a walk in the park or down the street, and it might be something odd. It might be an interaction between two random people. It might be something in a drain. It might be a squirrel or whatever. It's there's such kind of random things that it will either make you laugh or make you cry or whatever. If it brings out a strong emotion, then write it down, because there is so much power in emotion and how you can emotionally connect with an audience.
See, I like that. I really do like that. I I was talking to somebody. I'm sure you know it might be your PA. Told me some really nice news. She said that you're about to launch a very cool kids
Yeah.
smartwatch. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it right now,
Well,
but I thought it would be nice to maybe brief us on what it could be about so people could understand that. And it sounds like a fantastic idea. Would you like to talk about it?
yeah. So, well, hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, the product
Yeah.
will be launched. So I can tell you a little bit about it. But it's a kids smartwatch. It's a partnership with Disney. So lots and lots of
Yes.
Disney characters and content on there. And again, going back to that idea of purpose, we think there are so many children, and again at key stage 2, that are probably taking mobile phones to school, and they really don't need mobile phones, because that opens up a whole world of issues, of potential problems when a I don't know, a 7 an 8-year-old, and that some of them are that young with mobile phones these days, have that power in their
Mm.
hands. And perhaps the parent is a little kind of naive about what that can give them, doesn't necessarily put all the restrictions on there, and all of a sudden they are going down a bit of a rabbit hole in terms of the websites that they're on or social media or whatever. And it's a dangerous place to be. There's reasons why everything has an age restriction to it. And the great thing about our product is it's a very safe introduction. We call it a pre-mobile phone device. So it's a very safe way to have a few of those things that you perhaps kind of need. So if your child is walking to school by themselves for the first time, that you will have peace of mind if you're connected with that child. So our watch enables children and parents to kind of connect, whether that's through voice or chat. There are ways to kind of connect with the people that kind of matter in your life. So there's no kind of internet browsing or anything like that, but there are certain little things that make a child feel like they've got a very, very special gadget in their hands. So we know how much children love technology. I mean, even in the early
True.
days of when I was a kid, I absolutely loved anything that had a slight kind of techie feel to it. But if
Yeah.
you're able to give them that they feel empowered, again, go back to that word empowerment, but they're empowered in a safe way, then you got the best of both worlds there. So yeah, very, very excited about this watch coming out in the next few days. And yeah, kind of watch this space. So hopefully it's going to be at the top of the Christmas list for all the parents and kids.
I want
You want
one.
one?
Yeah, I want one
Okay,
now.
that's fine. Nothing to say that adults can't wear them as well. In fact, there's plenty of adults in our office that are already wearing them. So
Are you
yeah,
serious?
totally. Well, Disney fans, you don't stop being a Disney fan. Think about all the Disney Plus at the moment. How many people love Disney as children, and are wanting to kind of re-engage in that
Yeah.
experience as adults. I bought Disney Plus subscription. Was it for my children or was it for myself? I don't know. Probably a bit of both. I'm watching The Mandalorian, they're watching Frozen 2 or whatever, but it's yeah, I think it's a bit of both.
Oh, that's super cool. Here, I've got two more questions for you,
Yeah.
Neil. My second to last question is, what would you like your legacy to be? Because I think this is really important in our lives, and sometimes it's a question that we all ask ourselves at some point in our lives. How would we like to be remembered? But also, what would we like our legacy to be from people and within ourselves? What would you say?
Ooh, again, this inward kind of focused answers that I need to give you here. So that I was giving, I want to give back. I want to see the people that I work with know that I kind of gave it my all and gave them the support that they wanted. I mean, in a professional capacity, in a personal capacity, that I wasn't an arse, quite frankly. I don't, I know I can be quite kind of headstrong about ideas sometimes, but I tried to do it in a nice, humble, collaborative way.
You have to be firm
You do.
sometimes,
Well, it's in
Neil.
my surname, so Furmston.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, firm but fair. Um, yeah, totally. And that, yeah, it is. It is. I'd like to think I'm a relatively nice person and I'm a generous person.
Yeah.
I don't have hundreds and hundreds of friends, but the friends that I do have, I'm very giving and very generous to, and will always have time for. And that's very, 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 very important to me to be able to. Time is the biggest gift of all, and to leave this kind of planet knowing that you've given people some time is a very valuable thing. I think it's such a simple thing, but very valuable.
And my last one for you, Neil, is where can we find you on all your social media platforms? And if anybody would like to get in touch with you, like I was humbled to, where could they find you?
Yeah, well, I'm on Instagram, probably more Instagram than Twitter, but my handle on both of those is Mr. Furmston. So yeah, you can find me there. I've got a folio, so you can check out my work at firmston.co.uk. And I've also got a little kind of pop art project that I work on, which is marginally more successful than my commercial work, Instagram, which is the Fermi. So again, it's just the shortening of my name, Fermi. Um, that's quite a good one, just to kind of show what happens in my spare time beyond just doing work for big companies. What kind of drives me on a personal level.
See, I love that. Neil, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate your humbleness and your gratitude for just life and, being able to help other people. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's been really fun. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the Us People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also donate to the Us People podcast by simply go to the Savia Rocks website or just simply typing in paypal.me/Us People podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another.
It's my pleasure because I appreciate that everyone's got a little something in their life that they're either going through at the moment or they perhaps had to overcome, but it's knowing how you can turn that perhaps kind of darkness or negativity into something positive and empowering. And it's good to hear people's stories that they have overcome adversity to get themselves in a positive place, I think.